Let's rock and roll.
All right. Hi everyone. Welcome to the Roast War and Everything. You're joined by two very hot and bothered sand gropers. We're going through a heat wave at the end of spring. It's not even fucking summer yet. And Dolzy, do you have a bit of fire going on your way?
Yep. Down the road. Got put out. That's good.
But 10 properties were lost north of Perth, weren't they? That's the last I saw anyway. Thankfully, no one has died, but there's been some severe property damage done up there. And I guess we're only just getting started in terms of bushfire season. So, yeah, it started early this time.
Oh, God, maybe climate change is real.
Maybe. Okay. Sorry, I shouldn't eat right before I do a podcast. I get all phlegmy and I've got a cough a lot. Okay, guys. So we've got, it looks like another fairly longish episode for you. A lot in the news in the past week. I decided to just kind of jumble the prep up today, because I'm such a fun and spontaneous guy. But it was also just because no overarching story that caught my attention. So we're going to start off today with the issue of freedom of speech and some new laws and safeguards that have been announced by our Attorney General, our Jewish Attorney General, Mark Dreyfus. So this concerns a review that was started being conducted in December last year. And basically it was to find out, has too much law and legislation been going in the direction of national security rather than in protecting people's privacy, their right to know, that delicate balance that you very often get, that we get wrong. So, unsurprisingly, it did find that we've been moving too much in the direction of national security instead of people's rights. And this the review also really what it came off the back of was two particular incidents concerning, I don't know, would you call them whistleblowers? That's certainly what Peter Grester calls them.
Kind of.
I mean, well, look, the two in question were the ABC raid that occurred in 2019. So you had a number of ABC journalists who were targeted by the AFP, I believe. And this was because of, so-called war crimes that had happened in Afghanistan. Illegal killing of Afghan civilians by Australian soldiers. And then the other concerned Anika Smethurst from News Corp. She was the one where she said that the AFP went through her underwear drawer. And what was her thing? Oh, yeah. So she reported on the plans to give our spy agencies even greater surveillance. So how ironic is that, that she became a target of surveillance agencies. So there's been a number of others.
For that good half. They're looking for those dirty discharge panties that they can just huff in yes. in great quantity. Yeah, God, I love my AFP. I think they're great security and great intelligence agents, and I don't doubt them at all.
Yeah, I don't know, not at all. So, it probably is about time that we had action on this. A little while ago, Peter Grester gave a speech to the National Press Club. Peter Grester, if you don't know, was the guy who was kidnapped by the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt back when he was reporting on the Arab Spring. And, Australia had to kind of negotiate his release, and he obviously was eventually released. He became sort of like this figurehead for freedom of speech in journalism. And at that address, he was calling on the government to implement a Bill of Rights when it came to freedom of speech and whistleblowing and protecting journalists and protecting sources from prosecution and that kind of thing. Well, you're not going to quite get that, Peter. But what you will get is Well, actually, I'll just go back in time a little bit here.
Hopefully, it's sent back to Egypt to get fucked in the ass. But like,
Yeah, look, there's not, by the way, like, he's an Al Jazeera journalist, I believe. There's, like, besides that, there's not really that much to admire about.
hopefully, to get sent back to Palestine to get bombed by an Israeli.
Well, we'll get to that. Don't worry, that's, of course, in the prep today. But look, back when Christian Porter was Attorney General, hard to believe now, he actually issued a ministerial directive to Commonwealth prosecutors that required them to seek his approval before they could pursue journalists through the courts. And what that means is go to the court to get a warrant and then raid them. So you had to get the okay from the Attorney General. So Mark Dreyfus has said that he is now going to actually enshrine that in law. So it's kind of sticky and not merely a directive. That could be repealed in the future, of course, but I think, that would be pretty damn bad PR for whatever government would choose to repeal that. Also, there are a number of offences that they want to make, well, not offences. They want to remove the criminal liability from them, and that's all to do with journalistic practices, and protecting sources and whistleblowers. So, if you provide something to WikiLeaks or something, and then you merely report on it, well, maybe the person who provided it to WikiLeaks is breaking the law. But WikiLeaks isn't doing it, and people who report on it are not breaking the law
Don't
either.
worry. He'll be in English prison. Like, it's no one's concern.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you cause that much of a headache for the government, the Americans will come after you. Okay, don't worry about that. So even though they've got freedom of speech enshrined in their constitution, in their Bill of Rights, they're absolutely the global police on this. So that, I think, is actually part of the reason why I think the government is sort of willing to cede some ground on this, is because they know that, like, there's other pressures out there. There's not just the AFP. There's America. If you fuck with the great giant, they'll come after you. And not to mention, there's also just other,
A large station.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you're talking about Israel there, but yeah, I mean, there's other ways in the private sphere.
No, Israel is the smaller Satan.
It's often it gets confusing. I think they're like small in geography, but
big in power, etc.
Which is the
I'm using an Arab phrase, like they can only like look at it in square meterage. So like there's a small Satan, there's the biggest Satan.
Yeah. I mean, I'm actually reading Revilla Oliver at the moment, The Jewish Strategy, and he points out that, like, where Jews derive their power from is cunning, and they have a lot more cunning than most people, unfortunately, and that's why they're able to use the world's greatest power, America, for their interests. It only goes so far, though. Remember, if people start to actually see through that, they have very little numerical power to themselves. So, their grip is always precarious, as we're seeing now with what's happening with Israel and the fact that they're losing so much international support. Okay. So, also on the issue of freedom of speech, so Michelle Rowland, who's the communication minister, she is the minister who is, currently drafting the legislation for the misinformation laws. And, I can't believe I missed this, because I know TRS actually covered this. This definitely should have been something I picked up on. But a couple of weeks ago, when Albanese was questioned on these proposed laws, he gave an example of what the misinformation laws would target. And the example was, we probably played this on, or showed the image on XYZ Live, a cartoon that had various Jewish figures that supported the Aboriginal voice to Parliament. And it had a Star of David over the top of it. I cannot believe I missed that. Yes. So Albanese actually discussed that particular poster or cartoon, whatever it was. And he said specifically That was what misinformation
Tell
laws
me the fucking
would become.
lie.
Right. So, I mean, the reason he goes and does this, and it was quite a convenient meme here in that, like, it had Julie and Lisa in it from the Liberal Party, and then it also had Joshua Burns from Labor Party. So he was able to sort of do the kosher sandwich thing and say, see what I mean? These laws would be against disinformation against the Liberal Party, but also against the Labor Party, and of course against Jews. So, if you were wondering if these laws would be disproportionately affecting white nationalists like us, guys like us who put out a podcast every week, well, you bet your sweet ass it would. All right. So the very fact that he actually named that, as far as I know, that is the only example that he has discussed publicly. That really only refers to one group of people, and that is white nationalists.
Yep.
So
that's us.
Yeah. So that's why, because it looks like these laws are going to be passed in 2024. We're going to have a bit of a tricky time managing all of that, I think. And I was talking about AFP raids before. They're probably going to intensify on our guys next year because of these bloody laws.
Get ready, get set.
That's not actually the story I had. I just had to get that part off my chest. What we have, the story I have today is Michelle Rowland, Communications Minister, is saying that the exemptions that were already proposed for political parties and government bodies are going to remain. So that means that, like, you have a fairly biased, passionate advertising that happens during a political campaign. A lot of it is hyperbole, a lot of it is puff, and it would be wrong to kind of apply misinformation laws to it because they're by nature, they're partisan and they're full of rhetoric and puff, like I said. So that's going to remain. Government bodies also, that's a strange one though, saying that, like, government bodies who put out official information all the time couldn't possibly get it wrong. So that would be one area where I would say maybe we do need misinformation laws, so that
maybe we do need to fucking fact check you fucking faggots.
Right.
Oh, sorry.
Right. Yeah, and also they're looking to, I think we mentioned this last week, but because they're accepting submissions now, which means, various stakeholders write into Parliament and say, here's why you should or shouldn't have these laws, or here's how you should adjust them. Religious groups are also very worried that they would be subject to these laws. And Michelle Rowland has signalled, she has not confirmed yet, that there will be religious exemptions as well.
And we're not talking about Christians.
Well, look, they did say the reason I had that story actually was because I got it from the newsletter of the Australian Christian Lobby. So they said that they're actually in talks. They're currently lobbying Labor for religious institutions. So, and they might get it. The Australian Christian Lobby is actually like a fairly aggressive lobby in that they know what they want and they'll push hard to get it.
Fairly fucking heavy on the emails. We'll see if they actually get what they want.
Yeah. I subscribe to their emails, by the way, mainly as a form of prep. They let me know about a lot of things of what the religious community is doing in response to the laws that, generally speaking, are against them. All right, so let's move on to cybersecurity and communications. The Optus CEO has resigned, Kelly Bayer Rosmarin. She, for the time being,
it makes no difference.
Well, yeah, that's it. So look, she's been, for the time being, replaced by the CFO, Chief Financial Officer, Michael Venter. That's an interesting name. Although they said that's only for the interim. They're going to be choosing someone else. Who knows who it'll be. I don't know if this guy's Jewish or not. I don't know if the people in line to take over from old Kelly are Jewish, but yeah, I agree that it probably would not have made any difference. I think like where she really went wrong was the fact that she hid from the media for so long.
She's a dumb fucking Yenta who got put to a position of power that she really shouldn't have been in, and she got vented and got replaced by a venter. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, so look, God, who was it? There was someone in the
Your
other day.
daughter has been ventilated.
God, I can't remember who it was. There was someone in Senate estimates the other day who was saying that, like, we just have a blame culture generally in Australia where we always
We have a
just
lack
look
of fucking competence from top to bottom.
Well, yeah,
And I like it.
I think the reason this happened is just because, we are outsourcing white labor for cheap brown labor. And if you pay peanuts, you're going to get monkeys. In this case, they're very, very close to fucking monkeys. And Optus is only one example, okay? I mean, because this is one of the symptoms of a third world
if you pay baby Gazans, yeah, you're going to get Jews.
Yeah. Or a sign of a civilization regressing is when you start to see public infrastructure fail. So that means outages, brownouts, blackouts, public transport not working, public roads and rail deteriorating, those kind of things. South Africa, classic example if you want to see this kind of happening. And it's happening in fast forward now. Like they used to say...
We're getting there. We're fucking getting there.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess you could say it's happening in slow motion in Australia now. It was happening in slow motion in South Africa. Now it's on fast forward. And yeah, you're just going to see more of it. And yeah, sacking her is not going to make a little bit of difference, I don't think. Although it is just nice to see a Jewish woman lose her job. If you want to get any satisfaction from that.
Well, dude, they're going to fucking send her back to the citadel.
Yeah. So look, this came after she was grilled in Senate estimates, as you would expect. She, at the time, said she had no intention of resigning. Obviously, she must have been pushed. I'd say pushed pretty hard. But we had over 200 calls to 000 that failed. We now have thousands of customers in compensation talks. So remember, they were simply just offered 200 gig of data, which we know is bugger all, especially if you've got a high data plan or an unlimited plan. Like, what the hell good is that going to do you? Nothing. So I don't know exactly here, but I would say some of these customers are basically threatening to take them to court and start a class action against them. And there's already been talk of that, by the way. So Optus is basically trying to do all of these deals out of court now so they can stop that from happening. Singtel. So this was like another service that Optus was relying on. And they are apportioning some of the blame to them. So they're saying it's not all of their fault. They said that for about 6 hours, they thought it might have been a cyber attack. And then they, no, it was basically, it's our fuck up. It's our infrastructure that's wrong here. Oh, and this one, I found this very interesting. Senior Optus staff have backup SIM cards for emergency. So one of them used Vodafone, I believe. And do you remember how bad of a reputation Vodafone got? They did have a class action lawsuit against them. You remember that?
Yeah.
This was where people were literally making calls and texts that went nowhere. Like, you would send a text and it just would not reach the person you sent it to. So there was a class action lawsuit.
Vodafone.
So this must mean that senior staff at Optus did not trust their own service to a large extent. considering that one of them actually relied on Vodafone as a backup and kept a Vodafone SIM. Okay. Which is like, notorious as actually being the worst
The highest of treason.
mobile phone telco in the country. Not anymore. I think Optus is taking
Vodafone, like when you only want to be able to make calls and texts inside of a city center and then outside of it, good luck.
Right. Another interesting one. A lack of direct communication with customers was deliberate. Right.
They actually sent death threats to some customers.
Sent death threats to them.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
Well, it turns out that Optus, did the standard telecom thing, which is set your fucking like AI call center, slash AI type center in India, and the Indians eventually got fucking like sick of. Yep. The Indians eventually got sick of like dealing with like angry customers and said,
now they know how I fucking feel. Hold on.
Go kill yourself.
Indians complaining about people calling them too much? Really?
I might make 5 rupees an hour. Go kill yourself. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, that's it. Like, Bajiks have no emotional intelligence whatsoever. They read off the script, and then, of course, when they get agitated, it's just, fuck you, motherfucker, cockballs. Bloody fucking.
Oh, look at the fucking like what was that Brown Bosnan, which is like he's meant to be a pro-white Indian, but as soon as like India gets called into question, he's like I hope you get raped by Arabs. I hope you get raped by Arabs. I hope you get raped by Arabs. Like Jesus Christ.
All right.
Come on.
Okay. Now look, I'll just quickly say I don't think this is going to be exclusive to Optus. As I just mentioned, Vodafone have had issues like this in the past, but Optus are not the only ones outsourcing their workforce. Everyone's doing it. So, as a prediction, there's going to happen more. And I mean, generally speaking, we're going to see more and more markers of a third world country
But to speak Pashto
start to appear. Yeah, I mean, this should serve as a wake-up call to what is the regression of Australian civilization. All right.
On to the next.
Yep. So, this was somewhat in response to what happened to Optus last time around, where you had that enormous hack, where, around 10 million people had their data compromised. So, these proposals were announced by the Home Affairs Minister, Claire O'Neill. So this is where businesses that report cyber attacks will be afforded new legal protections, have red tape slashed when liaising with regulators, and be required to work with government investigators after the incident to probe what happened. So, in other words, when there's a cyber attack, if you're a business that falls victim to a cyber attack, if you kind of report it extensively to the government and to the regulators, the government will reward you with particular legal protections. I'm assuming in that case that would mean, like, say, customers wanting to take you to court for having their privacy breached. They're going to say, well, look, it was up to you to keep my data secure and you failed in doing that. So yeah, it's this new kind of partnership that Claire O'Neill is proposing here. I guess if they do cooperate a little bit more, then you might see this.
How about this? Like, just make them part of the state. Like, they're a necessary function of our country. So make them part of the state. How about that?
Are you going full Nasvol here? Saying socialize them, nationalize them?
Well, they've fucked up too much. How about that?
Yeah, what if it's just a small business, though? Because, I mean, I know it doesn't usually happen to them, but...
We're not fucking talking about, like, Dodo phones or, like, what the fuck. We're talking about, like, Telstra and Optus.
Well, I mean, Telstra used to be a government monopoly. I guess it wouldn't be that hard to make it one again. But I don't know. This, I think, is about as good as you're going to get.
Yeah.
And if anything, it's also, I think, just sort of a reassurance to the public, like, hey, the government is doing something about
I'm
this.
trying. I'm trying very hard. Oh, I'm trying.
So just to give a bit of detail on it. So the laws would limit how information shared with the Australian Signals Directorate, which is the regulator, and the National Cyber Coordinator can be used by other government entities, including regulators. The government is also establishing a cyber incident review board based on international and domestic models used, including the US Cyber Safety Review Board. So it says the board will run no-fault post-incident investigation into major cyber attacks. In other words, they don't blame anyone. Similar to how investigations are sent in following aviation and maritime incidents. Wow. So that's treating it like a plane crash, basically, when you send in forensic investigators to examine a site where a whole bunch of people died. Like, this is the equivalent in the cyber world. Yeah. So I guess they're getting serious on it because cybercrime is always increasing and getting more sophisticated too, because it is spreading through Asia, where you have smarter people than Africa. Yeah, right. You've actually got functioning infrastructure over there. All right.
You have many computers.
All right. So, so we've also had the promise of an extra $587 million into improving Australia's cyber defences. And that in turn would protect businesses, governments, critical infrastructure, is that term again, from ransomware attacks by state-sponsored hackers and crime gangs. Now, we mentioned last
Chinese
week
with their computers.
Right, that's exactly what I was going to say. Apparently, they think that the majority of these cyber attacks are coming from Chinese state-sponsored actors. So, some kind of a link with the Chinese government, and then Russian hackers. And most of the time when they say Russian hackers, they're talking about like individuals, though. They're not really talking about the Russian state. I'd like to know the ethnicity of a lot of those Russian hackers.
Me too.
I suspect it would be pretty similar to the Russian mafia, if you know what I mean.
I suspect it would be very similar to the Russians that Trump was tied to.
Right. So we already had an existing $2.3 billion in funding from the coalition from the last government. So this is, over $500 million more, which I guess shows that, the government, finally is actually taking this kind of stuff seriously. I still think they should be going after, scams a lot more, stopping these scams, because I got one just before.
Stop robbing the fucking elderly. And also, I got one fucking, before we started this fucking podcast saying, oh, God, your parcel is, being held up at, wherever the fuck, and, oh, God, you just have to give us the wacky digits on the back of your credit card and the full credit card number, and, we'll just send it on.
Yeah, I had one. Some guy told me that I registered interest in making money from working at home online. And I can safely guarantee everyone I have never done that in my life.
No, that was Grindr. Finian registered interest in joining Grindr. So an agent...
I was like, dude, what? Don't you have anything better than that, Because obviously chances are I did not do that. Why would you call me, I don't know. But I'm getting, one of these, honestly, almost every day now.
Demented, retarded, old, senile. That's the trifecta. All
right. So look, much of that money. I should say Claire O'Neill and Albo released a cybersecurity report, 59-page strategy plan that includes actually throwing a lot of that money towards small and medium-sized businesses. and also the $144 million to strengthen critical infrastructure. Now, that critical infrastructure as well, like we said before, major telecommunications would be like Optus and Telstra. But I'm glad that at least they are helping out some of the smaller businesses, and they're the ones who should not have to suffer so much from, say, class action lawsuits when they fall victim to a cyber attack. And at least then it looks like the government's kind of got their back in that regard. So yeah. Okay. So look, real quick.
I'm gonna fucking like a Nasbol post. Like, if you're targeted by other states as like a necessary means of infrastructure, like, why shouldn't you be the state of your own home country? I'm just gonna leave that as a question.
Right. All right. So let's move on to media news. And just real quickly, I just wanted to inform people that the managing director of the ABC, which is basically their boss, David Anderson, was reappointed. And he is paid $1 million a year. And this reappointment was basically done in secret, which is unusual. Usually these announcements are made public as soon as the decision is made. But for some reason, the ABC wanted to kind of keep it quiet that David Anderson had been reappointed. Now, I don't know. This might be to do with more recent controversies, like, they have their own version of Drag Queen Story Hour on the ABC now. They have this stuff. They had one where they had a drag queen reading stories to Humpty Dumpty.
Oh, God.
It was on the set of Play School, by the way. I forget the creature's name who bloody did it. But Alex Antic, was questioning David Anderson about this in the Senate, about the sexualization of children. And that somewhat made David Anderson a bit of a, more of an enemy anyway to normie conservatives.
There's a suture up there. Yeah. And a chair as well. Sorry, had to.
That's right. But look, if we get any more on that, we'll let you know. So, the main thing we want to talk about in the world of media is that the defamation suit filed by Bruce Lehrmann against Channel 10 and Lisa Wilkinson actually started. Wednesday, I believe, was the first day. We're doing this on Friday, 24th of November. So there was questioning today as well, and they're adjourning till Monday. Now, good one, Rand. Is that Bush Chook, or is it some craft beer?
No, that is the cheapest fucking dingo lager I can actually get.
Okay, fair enough. I'm gonna brew a sour brew, I think, next weekend. I know a lot of people hate sours. I love them. Anyway, I don't really have a hell of a lot to
not too much lactose this time.
I actually read through the entire rolling coverage on The Australian. Right now, really all you've got is Bruce Lehrmann being cross-examined by the defense lawyers for Channel 10, and they've pointed out little, minor discrepancies in what Bruce Lehrmann has said. The ABC, of course, as soon as they pick up on one of this, they make that the headline. So, for example, one of the things that he did concede was that he said that he didn't remember buying Brittany Higgins a drink that night. CCTV footage shows that he bought her 2 vodkas. Wow. Must have meant he was trying to get her drunk so he could have his way with her. That was a headline on
2 vodkas. Jesus Christ, that's how you grease up a whore.
And it wasn't even worded like that. It was like Bruce Lehrmann admits he gave false testimony. It was written like that, It's like, okay, he didn't recall that he bought her 2 bloody vodkas.
I love state media as like a penchant for trying to keep the integrity of the state when it's obviously fucking failing underneath them.
Yeah. So look, when he gave that interview on that Channel 7 show, I can't remember the show now. It's their version of 60 Minutes anyway. Liam Bartlett did it.
60 Dicks.
Huh?
60 Dicks is Channel 7.
Yeah. I mean, look, the only reason I watched it is because I knew they would like having Bruce Lehrmann on. I cannot stand like commercial current affairs, like a current affair and Today Tonight, and I just they're vomit inducing. But yeah, look, if you guys saw that interview with Bruce Lehrmann, really, what we've heard so far from his testimony in this case is identical. There's nothing new to report. So even though I read through all of this, I can't pick anything special out here. He again denied that he raped her, obviously. He denied that he ever had sex with her. He denied he was trying to. He still doesn't really have an explanation as to why he just kind of left her in Linda Reynolds' office and then left, because he just went home after that. He just got an Uber and went home. So if you're looking for kind of loose ends to be tied up, well, no, unfortunately, you haven't got that.
You buy a girl like 2 fucking like vodka cruises and like go back to her boss's office and she strips naked and falls asleep on the couch. Well, yeah, that's time to leave.
Yeah. Oh, wait, here's another one the ABC pointed out, and that was that Bruce Lehrmann said in an AFP interview back in 2021 that he did not have any alcohol in Linda Reynolds' office at the time. Oh, and guess what? Video showed that he had a couple of bottles there. Fucking hell, who cares? That, again, was another one of the ABC
She's
headlines.
a whore. She's a whore. I'm going to say it like a fucking like Italian grandma. She's a whore. Like...
yeah, she got really drunk. She stripped off naked. The security guard saw her naked and she didn't get up and get dressed till 10 the next morning. Good way to lose your job. She came up with a fucking bullshit story to cover it up. Simple as that. All right, let's move on to Israel and Gaza. So, yeah, lots of random stories, I guess, here.
War crime, different kind of war crime. War crime.
Well, look,
war crime.
We're covering the Australian reaction, of course. We want to look at this in terms of how Australia is perceiving it. Yes, first of all, the government has been issued, I should say, almost 3,000 visas. To people like not necessarily seeking refuge, but who just want to get the hell out of that area. So this is just referring to Gaza and the surrounding areas. Now, I was just watching Andrew Bolt quickly before we started the show, and he was actually talking about Geert Wilders. How he's gotten more votes than anyone else in the Dutch election, and he was talking about his plans to stop Muslim immigration to the Netherlands. Bolt used that as a way of discussing Muslim immigration to Australia, and the fact that it has now been revealed by the ABC that 860 visas have been approved for Palestinians. And he wants to know, and so does James Patterson, as to whether or not Hamas fighters are going to slip through the cracks and thus enter Australia. Well, to both Bolt and James Patterson, I would say none, because Hamas fighters stand their ground. They have an interest in staying put in Gaza, defending their homeland and fighting the Israelis, so that they can have Palestine to be free from here to the sea. That's what it is. Okay? Now, I won't disagree with them in that, we'll get shitty people. We will definitely get shitty people. And I am not saying that I want... I am not crash hot on having 860 Arabs over here. Some of them might not be. Some of them might be... because you can get white Palestinians. You get, these, red-headed ones. When I was on holiday, I met this girl from Jordan, and she had bright red hair. She had hazel eyes, not blue eyes, but hazel eyes. And I could have sworn she was from Ireland or something. And she told me she was from Jordan. So, Yeah, you'd be surprised. But anyway, there's another
Finian's
issue here.
miscegenation complex aside.
Right. Now, just remember this. What we are seeing currently is a humanitarian crisis in Gaza, okay? Not in Israel. But something that Andrew Bolt neglected to mention is that as well as the 860 visas that have been approved for Palestinians, 1,739 have been approved for Israelis, for Jews.
Yeah.
Now, why is it that Israelis, who are not in the midst of this humanitarian crisis, are having more than double the amount of visas issued to them? Why is that?
Well, I'll tell you why, Finian. It's because the fucking Sydney Opera House was lit up in blue, white, and blue. Not to remind you, not to say oh god, we stand with the Israelis. Oh, now to remind you who's in charge. Same with every fucking big monument over here, even the Commune House over here in Perth.
When James Patterson was talking about this, he actually made reference to what happened at the Opera House, and he said he didn't want to see a repeat of the Opera House protests. It's like, really? Well, hold on. Is that what you think the worst of the worst of Palestinian terrorism has to offer? A protest
well,
against the lighting up of the Opera House. You could have done better.
How about lighting up a tank? Also, go on Telegram. The Israeli offensive is a fucking joke. Imagine sending tanks into an urban conflict with no infantry guard, and then also you don't have to imagine. You can see it right now on Telegram. They're dropping grenades into the fucking ammo fucking canisters of those tanks and watching them light up. I grin.
Yeah. So look, I mean, there'll only be more of these visas given, and they're mainly 600 visas actually that are visitor visas. So that just means you can come to Australia, and if you're family sponsored, you can come here for up to a year. But then, of course, once you're in the country, you're on shore, and that opens up other avenues.
Becomes a PR, becomes a citizen, etc.
Yeah, other visas that you can apply for that, can eventually lead to citizenship. So, yeah, that's the other thing. And, that's why the Teals and that were so keen on Medivac, because that got people on shore. And once you're on shore, you can access the Australian courts and go for other visas and everything. So
that makes so much of a difference when there's fucking 500,000 fucking Indians coming into our nation every year.
Yeah, this is the thing. I don't give a fuck really about these Palestinians who come in. I mean, yeah, look, if I had the choice, I would say no. But yeah, it's a complete drop in the ocean compared to the amount of Hindus and Sikhs that we're getting in, that we are just
blast shitters, toilet splitters.
Remember, India is now the country of our most migration. We don't source it from more from any other country. And man, I want to scream when I go out shopping now, because they're just fucking everywhere, speaking their various dialects.
Flies.
And it's just so triggering, man. I mean, and you see why social capital breaks down, because it just makes people not want to go out. I don't want to go out where all these fucking shitskins are. Okay.
Let's stop the frothing hatred for just a minute, and then get back into it.
All right. So, in terms of the parliamentary response here, we had this. It was sort of like a press conference called it was led by the Greens. So they came out calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, calling on the Israelis to lay down arms. They did so by presenting a petition that has over 40,000 signatures from Australians on it. But interestingly, the Greens were joined by two Labor backbenchers, also a National Party MP, Mark Colton.
MPs that don't want to continue their career.
Oh, Oh, sorry. I thought there was a liberal in the mix there, but no, sorry. Just
Oh
two
no.
Labour
Oh
backbenchers.
no. Oh no. Oh
National.
no.
Well, yeah. Look, I was just talking to a friend about this earlier today. No one is supporting Israel except for normie conservatives,
Yep.
and the National Party still has conservatives that aren't normies. You know, there is
I
still that
support
continuity
Israel.
of agrarian blue collar National Party members, certainly voters. Sorry, what did
I
you
was
say?
gonna say like I support Israel in its destruction and bulldozing over and becoming like new Palestine, so I can send all the fucking Arabs back there.
Yeah. Well, look, we are really, really seeing, I think, in real time, power slip from Jewish hands
We are.
because it is only um, mug idiots like Andrew Bolt who is acting um, as a useful idiot for them.
Well,
And no one cares, including many of the people who watch him because they might like his commentary in other areas, like me. I like what he says on climate change, on Aboriginal issues. But I just shake my head and think, you realize these are the same people who threw you under the bus. You got convicted under Section 18C because of Jewish lawfare and Jewish
we're
journalism.
in the same era as the destruction of the German race, written by whatever the fuck David Ishmael, like fucking some Jewish name Kaufman, back in 1936. We're in the same era of fucking Jewish heresy. So yeah, I like it. Keep it going.
And I know it's great. It's no, it is absolutely great. But yeah, the point I'm making though is that when that's the only faction, normie conservatives, that's actually a pretty small section of the population.
It's
Like,
boomers.
yeah,
It's just boomers.
yeah. Because look, there's a lot of people who are, younger voters, Zoomers, let's say, who might vote Liberal, and they have, maybe they're not outright white nationalists, but they say have paleocon tendencies or, trad tendencies or whatever. They
I've
don't give
seen
a
the
fuck.
complaints about TikTok, and it's literally plunk videos of fucking like
Yeah,
Hamas, like fucking
maybe,
like destroying tanks.
maybe they follow the Aussie Cossack or something.
Well, I no, like I don't know, maybe, but like no, like just in general, like I've seen like fucking like like don't say it, go like in some fucking nigger rap thing, and then like some Palestinian blowing up an Israeli tank. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying that, like, in the Australian context, it is no different. Well, actually, I would say it's accelerated here because Nancy Pelosi gave some speech at APAC or one of those bloody meetings a couple of weeks ago, talking about how support for Israel is still bipartisan and solid in America. Well, in Australia, I don't know if it is. I mean, I do actually somewhat agree with Peter Dutton when he says that um, the steadfast support for Israel in the Labor Party is receding. There's an element of truth to that. It doesn't mean that Albo is becoming more sympathetic to the Palestinian side or even senior frontbenchers. But we are seeing at the very least that their electorates are becoming increasingly
Hmm.
Muslim, and Muslims overwhelmingly vote for the Labor Party here in Australia. All right. Uh, so if you have this enormous voter base that is telling you, hey,
Wow.
this is the side you need to be supporting, that's very hard to ignore. And further to that, if you read Brenton Sanderson on this, he actually shows that for quite a long time, Jews have mainly voted for the Liberal Party in Australia. It's not like in America where, what is it, like 70% vote Democrat, something like that. It's actually much more like in the UK where, you had, who was it, Michael Howard, who was the Conservative leader of, the leader of the Conservative Party in the UK. For example, he was Jewish, is Jewish. They have a long history of,
Controlled destruction.
yeah, of Jewish conservatism. And we may not be quite as far in that direction as the UK is, but for the most part, Jews live in affluent electorates with high property prices, prime real estate that vote Liberal almost exclusively. Just think of Wentworth, for example.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So, we are now starting to see it slip a little bit. Now,
when you think
in
of me,
terms of the
think of
Greens,
Hoskins
something I
slicing
think
against the razor again and again.
I'm just going to jump ahead, Nolsey. If you look at the second last story in the Israel-Gaza section, because I might as well mention this now, Julian Leeser, he gave a speech to the Robert Menzies Institute, which is a Liberal Party think tank, on Friday, and he said that we should all put the Greens last. And here's why. Well, he said that all major parties should put the Greens last on their how to vote cards. But, by that, he basically wants everyone to
they support Hamas. Oh, God.
Now, I got to say, Julian, I usually do put the Greens last anyway. I think I have for a long time. I despise them. But look, here's why, though. He says here that anti-Semitism is now a full-blown feature of the extremist Greens political ideology.
Oh, God.
Yep. So he said there are...
Why are you such a fucking smoking emoji?
He said there's universities and inner city areas where there was political jostling between Labor and the Greens, and that had become anti-Semitic hotspots. We have seen from October 7 that the Greens are treating the horrors of the war on Israel as an opportunity to whip up anti-Semitic hate. The Greens' behaviour online and in Parliament since October 7 on these matters has been nothing less than disgraceful. In doing so, they join a long list of opportunists who have targeted Jewish people since time began. As a Jewish Australian, I have always had a sense of aversion to race-based politics. What?
Oh my fucking God.
What? As a Jewish Australian, I have always had aversion to...
Since time began, my race has existed. But also, race-based politics is outside of my fucking purview. Fuck you.
As a member of a particular racial group, I have always had an aversion to race-based politics. He might as well have said there. I'll just finish the quote. He said, "It's why I have always preferenced one nation last. But it's clear to me that the Greens are now worse than one nation. Yes, one nation
because of your race."
Just last quote here. This is all too good. I gotta read out.
I'm sorry.
Just the last one. That's all right. Yes, one nation is full of kooks and conspiracy theory nut jobs, but anti-Semitism is now a full-blown feature of the extremist Greens political ideology. It represents a danger to Jewish Australians and all Australians who value freedom. It's why I believe the major parties of Australia must preference the Greens last.
Oh my God, I fucking hate you so much. I hate you so much. Not because you're Jewish, because of the fucking the fucking back and forth you made during that fucking statement. Holy shit.
Can I also, okay, yeah, it's obvious how much hypocrisy is stinking from that statement. As a member of the most ethnocentric group and most politically organized ethnic group in the world, I have an aversion to race-based politics. But also, Julian, if you got such an aversion to it, why were you one of the prime architects of the Indigenous voice to Parliament? A race-based voice to Parliament. Is that not race-based politics, identity politics that you were playing there? Trying to give a small fraction
Unfortunately,
of the
a question he'll never answer.
Special say and special representation, elevating their social status in the country. You're trying to say that your aversion to race-based politics.
How about Arab voice to the Levant?
Yeah, wow. I just can't. I just want to know, when he made that statement, did he realize like the
No,
irony that was
no,
involved
no,
in
he
that?
didn't. He did not. Like
Yeah, he
at
probably
all.
didn't.
Like he did not fucking consider it for 1 second. I'm not even joking. Like I love this fucking conflict because it made them fucking insane and it fucking like literally reverted them back to the fucking Bronze Age fucking like tribal bastards that they are.
Yeah, and look, again, I know I always say, but this is why you shouldn't say that anti-Zionism is necessarily anti-Semitism, because by that token, you'd have to say that the Greens are based, okay? Because they're out here in holding up Palestinian flags in the Senate and all that. That doesn't make them based, okay? They have the warped view. They have the Noam Chomsky view. They don't see it as a result of Jewish religion or culture, and they certainly don't
Their
see it.
entire worldview is missing one fucking piece of the tile, and they're
Yeah.
running with
And I
it
mean,
anyway.
look, absolutely you can say that anti-Zionism without anti-Semitism doesn't make any sense, that it's illogical, that they're drawing the wrong conclusion, and that they're wrong to think that
Oh
the Jewish
God,
racial
it's
identity doesn't have anything to do with
imperialism.
it.
It's
Of course.
colonialism.
Yeah.
Oh
Of
God,
course their
no.
conclusion does not make any logical sense. That's absolutely true. But that doesn't mean that they hate Jews or that they're counter-Semitic. It doesn't mean that. If they were that way, they wouldn't be members of the Green Party.
A lot better if they were. Hey, if you find some like lone ones, just tell them.
All right. So today, Friday the 24th of November, there was also a school strike for Palestine. So we had people from the students, mainly from the capital cities, take the day off school. I'm sure there's a hell of a lot of them who just want to skip school and have a
Take the
day
day
off.
off school.
Yeah. Just like the climate protests, we had one of them yesterday. Now, we did have fairly strong opposition to this. So you had premiers of each state saying, hey, this is not a permissible event, like not an excuse to get out of school. You are wagging if you turn up to this thing. But not just that. You had a open letter written to Jacinta Allen from Melbourne's Jewish school community. And this letter was signed by 359 parents, students, school principals, and other
And
members.
rabbis.
And other members of the Jewish community. And they said that the rally involved complex geopolitical issues and that it amounted to exploitation of children by the anti-Israel movement. So they're trying to say that young children are being weaponized for anti-Semitism, basically. And look, I think how you know when Jewish power is slipping, or at least is being threatened, is when Jews kvetch, when they get worried, when they start sweating, saying, "Oh no!"
When they go out of their fucking minds.
Yeah, as they've done here, as Julie and Lisa has just done. So, yeah, it's a good sign. When you see them get all sweaty and hot under the collar, something is being done. And, it really is a case of chickens coming home to roost, because I did see a bit of footage
Or the golem
from...
turning around.
Yeah, well, I mean, I basically just mean because we're importing all of these Arabs and Muslims into Australia, and they are the most vocal opponents of Israel in the Jewish lobby. Well, they're the most visible, I would say. They're not afraid to go out and protest. So yeah, they're getting just desserts. It's all catching up to them. So we had 23 pro-Palestine activists arrested at Port Botany in Sydney. So this was like a freight shipping area. They were targeting the company Zim. Now, Zim is a shipping company that has been known to supply weapons and munitions to the Israeli army in Gaza. So if you talk about companies, groups that the BDS movement targets, Zim is probably top of the list when it comes to Australian companies or Australian activity, I would say.
Not DP
and
World.
This isn't the first time they've done that either. There's been a number of these. But now the police are actually getting in there. They're out there on like their jet skis and that, arresting people. Because, these are... this is actually how you do like DIY sanctions. Because remember, that's what trade sanctions effectively are. Like when America says, all right, there's sanctions on Iran, yeah, they take out a whole bunch of ships and stop people from delivering, right? That's what sanctions are. You can only impose them if you've got the military might to do so. And so these people were trying to do it with jet skis, or at least slow it down. So you got to hand it to them. They do real life proper activism. They get their hands dirty. All right. So another protest, this time in front of the Premier's office in New South Wales. So there was around 100 here. They carried a sign that had Chris Minns's face with blood all over it, implying that, blood is on his hands and all that. And last week, you might remember we talked a little bit about New South Wales's newly functioning Faith Affairs Council. This was a council that was sort of offered as a counterweight to hate speech laws that churches feel often, target them, mainly because of what they're saying on homosexuality. So we covered a Palestinian imam who has said that homosexuals spread diseases. Where's the lie? He's the Muslim representative on the Faith Affairs Council. And just after this protest happened at Chris Minns's office, they announced that the first full meeting of the Faith Affairs Council is going to be brought forward 1 week. And of course, you don't just have representatives from the Muslim community. You have representatives from just about every religious faith in the country. So that, of course, includes Hindus, Sikhs, Christians, the different denominations of Christianity, like Catholicism, and Judaism. So basically, they're trying to bring forward this a multicultural meeting of these members of differing religious faiths to kind of come to some kind of agreement.
On Zionism.
Some kind of a way to kind of let these simmering ethnic tensions die down. Good luck with that, guys. I mean, the very fact that you need this bloody council, just shows how we're just a warring bunch of different interests. You all, this used to be a thing where you were kind of like a religious collective that was organized against the excesses of the LGBT lobby. Now you're fighting amongst yourselves, okay? Because there's not a hell of a lot Muslims and Jews are going to be agreeing on right now. And certainly they won't be agreeing a lot at this meeting. Maybe stuff about gays. If you've got like ultra-Orthodox Jews there. But you're not going to be agreeing on anything else. All right. So also...
Smoking emoji.
On the same day that it was announced that they were bringing forward that meeting, Chris Minns has said that police will use emergency powers to prevent pro-Palestinian car convoys from traveling into Jewish suburbs. So remember the big one last week where they went into Caulfield and they disrupted a synagogue procession? Well, the Jewish lobby has been successful in convincing the Minns government to roll out the coppers and basically just stop them, because they're saying that this is nothing more than inflaming tensions and intentionally antagonizing the Jewish community. Yeah, it is. It is. I won't deny that. But human rights groups have called this overreach, because the police are not doing the opposite. And remember, Jewish groups have intentionally gone to areas of Palestinian protests to try and antagonize them, and they've even clashed a number of times. But we did not have any announcement from Chris Minns saying that he's going to be stopping that. He's going to be stopping Jews from antagonizing Muslims. He's not doing that at all.
Why would he? Unless they actually get violent or do something like material.
Right.
Oh, wait, they did.
Okay, so talking about how, it's only normie conservatives who are doing the full-throated support for Israel, you would think the woman who represents the electorate of Goldstein would be all in for Israel, but she's not. So this is the Teal MP Zoe Daniel, formerly ABC journalist. She took the seat from Tim Wilson, former Liberal and member of the Institute of Public Affairs. Now, she said this. Israel has to adhere to international law and the rules of war. I think in some ways the Israeli government has not been. If they've been targeting hospitals, if that's what's happened, it's a war crime, pure and simple. Not allowing humanitarian supplies in, again, doesn't adhere to international law. And you've heard the government say repeatedly, Israel has a right to defend itself. But the way it does, it has to be very careful. I agree with that. You can't bomb your way to peace. So
you can bomb your way to genocide, though.
Yeah. So.
Oh wait.
That's what they're doing. So Colin Rubenstein, he is the head of AJAC, the Australia, Israel and Jewish Affairs Council, said her comments were ill-informed and inflammatory, and he included in that talking about how when she referred to the Israelis targeting hospitals, that no, that was actually Palestinian Islamic Jihad. No, it wasn't. They have less rockets than Hamas do, and Hamas don't have a single rocket that is as large or military grade or as precise as that rocket that hit the hospital. The only people who have rockets of that description in that area is the Israeli army. That's it. And again, talking about James Patterson, I saw him on
second fucking
Insiders.
Story of a fucking of a hospital building. Yeah,
James
that's
Patterson
not a fucking JDAM.
James Patterson repeated that lie on Insiders on Sunday. He said that it was Palestinian Islamic Jihad. All right. Okay, so staying in New South Wales, more announcement in terms of the response to the simmering ethnic tensions. So the Minns government has announced that they will streamline and strengthen laws to clamp down on threats and incitement of violence based on race or religion. Now, this, as you can imagine, again, is at the behest of the Jewish lobby. He's really only ever talking about anti-Semitism when they talk about this. So we mentioned, I think it might have been last week or the week before, but where they were saying that you could actually prosecute people in Sydney under New South Wales. So this is under New South Wales law. Their particular code of hate speech. So when they yelled out "gas the Jews," that would be something you could actually prosecute them for, fine them for, but not "fuck the Jews," because "gas the Jews" can be perceived as a threat of violence. So Chris Minns has been listening to those calls to implement them.
I'm sorry, Arabs. Thank you for saying something that will. I can't even blame you guys. Thank you for just furthering the absolute fucking farce. There's that idea of freedom of speech.
Yeah, well, look, it doesn't end there. Okay, so look, not only has the Minns government said that yes, they will start enforcing that law, which previously, by the way, had not resulted in a single conviction. They just never really used it. They hadn't been prosecuting anyone. But also on Tuesday, the Attorney General Michael Daly introduced a bill that would amend Section 93Z of the New South Wales Crime Act, because he says that the existing protections were unfit for purpose. So in other words, they're bolstering them. All right. I don't know the detail of this, but that could mean that even if you said fuck the Jews rather than gas the Jews, that could be an offence as well. I don't know, but it certainly would not bloody surprise me. But yeah, you can see how they're making all this policy on the fly, enforcing laws that were never enforced before, passing new ones, all because Jews are telling them to.
Wow. God, like, why are you making these connections? Like, and why are these always showing up? Like, God, you must be like really anti-Semitic, aren't you?
Yeah. So
Wow.
look, let me just see if this has been yet. What is the date on this article? Okay, yeah. So I believe that they've just had the meeting at the Melbourne's Holocaust Museum. So it has been there since 1984. However, it's been renovated and revamped. And both the Prime Minister and Peter Dutton attended, and they used a speech to assure the Jewish community that the Australian government will protect social cohesion against those seeking to divide Australia. Is that right? I know a great way of protecting social cohesion in Australia. Only have one ethnic group.
Yeah.
What if you did that?
One homogenous population with one religion, that'll be great. That'll work.
That's how you create social cohesion that we actually had in this country until recently. So it's always so ridiculous, I find, that, like, you mix together all of these people from different ethnic groups, racial groups, religious groups, etc. You expect them all to get along. And then when they don't, and you simply talk about it, you are the one who is blamed for sowing division and breaking down social cohesion.
Oh God, you're destroying democracy.
The very people who accuse you of that are the prime architects of destroying social capital and cohesion. And it's amazing that some of them are too blind to see that the project they support is actually the one that destroys social cohesion. But anyway, they joined senior Jewish and political leaders. And it's supposed to display, much like at an APAC meeting, the bipartisan support against anti-Semitism and for Israel. Now, Peter Dutton he didn't do it at this meeting, but he has basically been making suggestions that bipartisan nature of being pro-Israel is on the decline, from only one side, though, of course. And yeah, like I said before, I think that's true, and that's simply because of the changing electorate, and also, actually, one other reason I forgot to mention before, but it's on the same lines: the increased amount of Muslims who are actually in Parliament for the Labor Party. Anna Lee, what's his name, Ed Husick, and then lots and lots over in New South Wales State Parliament. And actually, a lot of them are like Arabs who aren't Muslims, like, the Obeid family, for example. You still have a fair few Christian Lebanese people who live in New South Wales, and they do not like Israel either. They do not.
Not many Arabs do.
No. But, no one does. Who does? No one.
Jews.
I mean, look, in the 1960s, Jews decided to cuddle up to conservative Christians, conservative white Christians, particularly Protestants in America. Why? Because they knew that they were people who wielded a significant amount of power, and they knew they could be manipulated through their religion and convincing them that, they were God's chosen people and everything like that. And because they had a new state in the Middle East, Muslims hated them. And they said, you know what? Maybe these Christians who we really hated before, these white Christians, maybe they can actually be our friends, or at least be our allies against the people who want to slaughter us in the Middle East. And that was basically how neoconservatism was born. That's the crux of it, really. A bunch of former communists, mainly Trotskyists, who had a change of heart because they then saw Muslims as a greater threat than Christians. So they decided to ally with white Christians instead. But who else is there? And there's still a hell of a lot of white Christians who don't like Israel. There is no one. Okay. Last story. Nolsey, did you see the artwork that went up in the suburb of Balaclava?
Oh yeah, it was nice. I'm really fucking sad that it has to be removed. Like there was some nice artwork. And big
this
noses.
Is part of the city of Port Phillip in, like, I guess it's sort of a rich part of Melbourne, I believe. I'm sorry, Melburnians, I don't know your geography that well, but it encompasses Caulfield, Balaclava, and other areas of, high tribal population. Anyway, an art display went up. It's supposed to be one of these ones that, like, it preempts graffiti. Like in an attempt to stop graffiti, you actually, like, the government and the councils will approve of official graffiti, because if you look at it, it does sort of look like that. So in the cities, you'll see this kind of thing, like it. When you go to an underpass bridge or something like that, you'll see a lot of like graffiti style artwork. To stop people from drawing dicks and stuff. Yeah. So this particular artist that called the portraits People of Balaclava has drawn what look like caricatures of evil Jews. All right. Now, this was not intentional. Who was this music creator? Mike Porter, this guy. So he's known for doing, what they call street art, which is, like I said, the fancy type of graffiti out on the street. He had been known for drawing people with exaggerated features. And that included people's noses. So, I mean, if you look at this one up the top here of the story, you've got like two Jews on a wall, and then there's like two windows underneath, and the windows make up their nostrils, right? So you can imagine how big that makes their nose look. And you take one look at this. I looked at this and just burst out laughing, because straight away I said, this is like the merchant meme. Like,
this is the street merchant. Well. The merchant that takes up the entire fucking street.
Yes. So this was entirely accidental. The artist obviously did not know what the hell he was doing.
Yeah, a lot better if it wasn't.
Yeah, I know. That would have been. And so the Port Phillip Mayor, Heather Consolo, has said that they have received an absolutely enormous amount of response, all negative, and that, they're going to take it down. They're going to cover it up and like put new artwork there in its place. Yeah, so it was referred to as by the Jewish lobby as comically grotesque.
Didn't Devere Abramovich actually go down there and say like, "Oh God, oh God"?
Look, it wouldn't surprise me if you read through this article. There were numerous statements made by various Jewish groups, such as Zionism Victoria. So yeah, they were all getting in on this. It's just amazing that it all actually got up. It was all completed before they noticed. All right. Okay, so on to immigration. Talking about the decision again to release, I think we're pretty confident now it's 93 people have been released from indefinite detention. We've got further reports on the profiles of these individuals. So 27
are they good?
of these have committed very serious crimes against children or women or high-level violent crimes. Another 35 are subject to adverse character rulings following violent, sexual, or exploitative offenses. And 21 have committed national security, cybercrime, organized crime, or gang-related offenses. So, in other words, the majority of them, vast majority of those who we let out are either violent criminals or suspected of being so.
They're
Lovely.
true Australian citizens. Right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's just go through. Believe it or not, the ABC actually published a list of examples of some of the people we let out. They're only referred to as like person A and B, unfortunately. But anyway, person A sentenced to 22 years for the murder of his wife. Person B sentenced to 3 years for people smuggling. Person C, multiple prison sentences, including one for 10 months for punching his 8-month-old daughter. Person D, no Australian convictions but has been an interest of ASIO in immigration detention for 13 years. Person E, sentenced to 3 years and 4 months for trafficking a controlled drug in immigration detention. Person F, sentenced to 11 years for people smuggling. Person G, sentenced to 4 years and 6 months for rape, false
60
imprisonment,
years, so good.
and indecent assault. Wow.
What the fuck are we letting into this country?
There you go. And am I surprised by this? Not in the least.
No.
Now,
and you
it's
shouldn't
also been
too,
revealed that for a while, and this says something about whether or not the government suspected that this might actually happen, that the High Court might make this decision. Claire O'Neill said that they actually considered releasing the sex offender who the case was fought on behalf of. So that was the Rohingya man who raped a 10-year-old boy. And that means Myanmar won't have him back as a result. And who can blame them? They were saying that they were actually considering releasing him if it would make the court case go away. So if they were considering that, they must have had an inkling, at least, that the High Court was going to rule in his favor.
Can we release him into a fucking wood chipper? Is that an option?
Yeah. So look, what she said was that she ended up receiving legal advice from her own Department of Home Affairs, that the government would win the High Court case. So therefore, those plans were put to rest, and they were just expecting the previous case of Al-Kateb to be upheld and the precedent of legal indefinite detention upheld. Well, it didn't happen. Now, but the very fact that they did that meant that they were at least suspicious. So why did they not have emergency powers drafted or legislation drafted to preempt what was going on, to be prepared for this, instead of being just completely caught off guard and then rushing through last-minute emergency measures at the behest of the opposition? That was a big parliamentary win for Peter Dutton when he was able to get Labor to capitulate on this. So yeah,
that big fucking win was the idea of getting fucking white South Africans here on as a leftist said, vibes. That was a big fucking win. That's the only reason why you're fucking in the station you are in right now.
Right.
And what did you do? Nothing. You did nothing.
No. Okay, so look, we're actually just at the end of the final parliamentary sitting week of the year, not just of this session. And the coalition wanted Labor to use that week, or say extend it. There were a lot of calls to have Parliament sit next week. They wanted to use that to pass legislation allowing the government to re-detain freed foreign criminals. I don't know if they could have done that. Peter Dutton was interviewed on some radio station, I can't remember, where he was pressed for this detail. And he just said it was his understanding that legislation could be used.
What?
But he hasn't given any details. So look, I just kind of doubt it, or at least you can't do it. It's a rush job at the moment.
That's a bridge too far to fucking break at this point. So like, dude, like, look, we're already getting in like a billion fucking Indians. Is Polynesians for Crime a lobby group you want to listen to at that point?
Well, no, but like the other problem here is, right. Well, I'll just give this story quickly. This High Court ruling now actually means that a case can be made against the government for compensation, because if it's ruled that you had been detaining them illegally,
Oh
well,
God!
just like if you're wrongfully accused and you do a prison term when you're actually innocent, you're entitled to compensation. So that means that all of these people, plus more who say may have been in indefinite detention for a long time and then finally left the country, well, they could take their case to court in Australia and sue the government for it. So that's one legal ramification of this. But concerning the emergency laws that were passed, and remember that this included things like curfews and mandatory reporting to police stations, ankle bracelets, that kind of thing, to monitor them. That in itself is going to be subject to a High Court challenge. Okay? So who's doing this? It's lawyers for a Chinese refugee. So they're saying,
What?
yeah, they're saying that these emergency powers are arbitrary and punitive. Yeah, maybe they are, but I don't really care. They're utilitarian
My
as well.
problem.
They're monitoring dangerous criminals. So I don't
Actually,
care.
you
If they
shouldn't be
are.
my problem. You really shouldn't be my problem.
No. I mean, notwithstanding the fact they shouldn't be here in the first place, but anyway, the challenge was filed on Wednesday, so it's going ahead. So they're saying that because of the one size fits all measure here, because like the emergency powers relate to all 93, regardless of what their history might be, and some of them are not criminals, although most of them are. That means, they say the measures are inherently punitive in measure, thus exceeding the legislative authority of the Parliament. It is a restriction typical of criminal sentences and house arrest conditions, not of administrative visa regulations imposed by the government. Now, considering that the High Court just ruled indefinite detention illegal in Australia, there's a very, very good chance that they will also deem these emergency powers illegal as well. And then you won't even be able to monitor the violent criminals that we've let out of detention.
For starters, do we even have actually monitor the fucking violent criminals that are around our country today? Do we do that? Do we make the slightest modicum to do that? No, we don't.
And
I
you
love
see
living
how,
in fuck Earth.
This isn't just about like violent people. Like, if there's any civnats listening to this, this is a coalition of like shit-skinned criminals and Chinese and other human rights lawyers. Okay? Why is it that the Chinese lawyers are getting involved here? Because they have an ethnic interest in it. Okay? It's not just about picking the best people from around the world so that you can have a low crime level. You need to actually have cohesion, and you need to have solidarity between certain races amongst the white race, because other races will always have that solidarity. And if we're just going to be individuals about it the whole time and say we only care about someone's individual profile, you're going to get walked on by Chinese lawyers and the like.
I still like my local Chinese fucking my Australian actually civic nationalist saying like oh god, like we shouldn't be racist, and then posting a picture of like also like the Indians, and when they go into a flat sharing app and it's like Indians only, Indians only, Indians only, Indians only, Indian female only. Dude, I will not fucking hear that argument anymore. At all.
No, it's like, look, what the fucking, like, Sudanese immigrants who come over here and actually don't commit crime and say become socially mobile, become educated, and become say professionals.
University
Well,
Negroes.
what do they do? Yeah, university Negroes, and they do exist. There's not many of them, but they're out there. They pretty much all become human rights lawyers to bring in more Sudanese people. Okay, so even the very people that Civnats say are okay to let in will actually then go and work for the ethnic interests of their own group. That results in shitty criminals of their race being dragged in at higher numbers. That's just one of the reasons why civic nationalism is ridiculous. Okay.
I was going to say the main point of civic nationalism is about spoken language. That's it. If you can speak the language, the rest of it comes. But, well, some races don't actually speak the language and understand it as you do. So they don't. Guess what? Disadvantaged communities in fucking France stabbing to death a 16-year-old in the south of France. Fuck you, civic nationalists. Your dream is a fucking lie.
Yeah. And we've got something that just happened in Ireland as well. Did you see the stabbing? So far,
wow. That was another one?
Well, it happened like in Dublin yesterday, and it caused riots. And they said the riots were started by far-right protesters. So this obviously means that it was a stabbing attack by some non-white immigrant. That included children, by the way. He stabbed children. You know, maybe they need a fucking riot.
Is he dead?
No, he's in custody. Apparently he was stabbed. Like someone stabbed him, like took the knife and turned it on him. I'm not sure, but yeah, he's I think he's in hospital. He's obviously in custody. Okay. So look, another piece of fallout from all of this is the federal police now are demanding extra funding because they are the ones who are being tasked with enforcing those emergency measures, monitoring their ankle bracelets and that kind of shit. So yeah, I
need another $15 to shove my knuckles up this guy's ass.
But look, I mean, this is causing headache after headache for the government, and rightly so. You know, they deserve this. All right. So you've got these special visas. They're called temporary activity visas. We're getting onto other immigration news, by the way. So these are 408 visas, and they were specifically introduced for the COVID era. They're a special COVID era permit. Now, it's been reported that more than 175,000 international students and temporary workers are having their stays in Australia extended under those visas, which is causing us to say, well, hold on a minute. Wasn't the Albanese government supposed to be winding back all of these COVID concessions? So people who came in here on these 408 temporary activity visas are now being allowed to stay longer. Now, this isn't just because, you know, Labor loves immigrants or whatever. This is lobbying from big business and big education. All right. And we know, like, the big education is worth it's a $40 billion a year industry in Australia. Maybe more now that it's recovered. So, again, this just doesn't surprise me. So, you know, not only have we accelerated immigration to make up for pandemic losses that we had, but also some of the people who came over here on COVID visas, COVID era visas, are staying here when we were always told. I mean, it's called a temporary activity visa. God. Temporary? It's in the title.
God, they're just guest workers.
Yeah.
Besucherarbeiter. Oh, wait. It turns out, like, you get Turks forever. Wow. We got played by the fucking same game the fucking Germans did in the fucking 60s.
All right.
Besucherworker. Besucherarbeiter.
Oh. He was an interesting one. Just the other day, a group of 12 people from Indonesia landed in Western Australia. They just turned up on our shore. So they're still trying to basically figure out like who these people are because they don't speak English. So Border Force is trying to find out if this was in the northwest, by the way, but they're trying to find out how they managed to get there without detention. How you could just simply take a boat, a fishing boat it was, and land on the northwest of the country. And they don't know yet if they are asylum seekers or if they're just fishermen who maybe got lost. I guess both are kind of equally plausible. Indonesians are known to do that, though, like just to go out fishing so far out they just get fucking lost. That does happen.
It does. I don't like that it does, but it actually does. There's the Arctic stream, which sometimes brings them to our nation.
Right, and now I got to say, is our border force really that good? We're always told they're like the strict border force in the world, and they weren't able to intercept
Stop
this
a fishing boat.
Yeah, a simple fishing boat. Come on.
I read I would have picked it up like literally in our fucking like actually no, not in our, outside of our fucking like granted maritime zone. Or like our official maritime zone. So like yeah, we knew about it like probably about like 3 to 4 hours, probably 8 hours since it actually came into our fucking seas. So yeah, I'm gonna say incompetence here, incompetence with an agenda.
Well, and look, this is pure speculation, but the Australian Border Force, just like any other government outfit, is becoming increasingly diverse as well. So is this incompetence simply just caused by diluting our whiteness? So there's a good chance.
I would hope so, but I've seen them since.
All right, so on to national security. I was wondering, Science Guy, are you able to explain sonar pulses to us?
What kind?
So, did you hear about the minor injuries that Australian troops sustained from sonar pulses that came from a Chinese warship? This was during a diving operation.
So, you have to understand first that like the decibel scale is
logarithmic.
Yep. Sorry, I'm struggling with my nose. I'm still sick. But yeah. So for every 1 unit you go up, you're actually going up 10 units.
Right.
So, when you get exposed to a pulse of 300 decibels, you're actually not going to exposed to something that's halfway between a shotgun going off and a jet plane entering, starting. In fact, you're going up against something that's as loud as 1,500 fucking times that. A sonar depth pulse is about 300 decibels in water, and it can actually fucking rupture your eardrums, kill you, and it also kills some it kills dolphins and etc.
Right. Well, look. No, yeah, the main reason I wanted to ask you that was like, well, one, I don't really know what a sonar pulse is, but two, they just kept saying that they had
sound wave.
Okay, so look, when they said that they sustained minor injuries, is that what, just injuries to their ear?
Yep.
Right. Okay.
Eyes, ears, nose, and ears, nose, and throat. There we go.
Right. So look, how this happened. So this was HMAS Toowoomba, operating in international waters near Japan, and they had naval divers were working. So this was to clear fishing nets from the area. You then had this Chinese vessel, in the area. It acknowledged Toowoomba's communications, but it still kept moving closer and closer to the divers. They then detected a hull-mounted sonar in a manner that posed a risk to the safety of the Australian divers, who were forced to exit the water. So, yeah, that's what happened.
Close enough range, you could have killed them. I'll put it that way.
So this is serious.
Yeah, it is. It is.
And you have to wonder, did they do it on purpose? Because they did acknowledge that they knew the Toowoomba vessel was there, yet they kept edging in closer, and then, yeah.
I'm between that one fucking Chinese vessel saying Mao, meow, and also fuck off out of claim C, you Western cunts. That's my A and B here, but no, seriously, a sonar can actually kill somebody.
Right. So look, we know that Anthony Albanese has had a recent meeting with Xi Jinping, the Chinese premier. We covered that before. Now, it was revealed that this happened before that meeting took place. Peter Dutton wants Anthony Albanese to inform us whether or not he actually brought this up during that meeting. And as you can imagine, Albo just said, private, confidential. We're not doing that. So there you go. Okay. I had a boring thing in there about a Chinese businessman. Let's go to gun laws now. So we're a year on now from that shooting that happened, where you had a number of police officers killed in kind of semi-regional Queensland. So what? And man, this is the Australian newspaper. I'm reading all three of the stories that are about gun laws. And this shows how, when it comes to rampant gun control in this country, that is definitely a bipartisan issue. That is a side that both left and right definitely believe in.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? Now, and this is effectively what is an unofficial campaign being run by the Australian for there to be a national firearms registry. So the state's Auditor General in Queensland has just conducted a review saying the Queensland Firearm Registry is not fit for purpose, and that Queensland is falling behind in terms of other gun regulations compared to other states and territories, such as WA, where we now have a limit on, even if you're a licensed firearm owner, you still have a limit on the amount of guns and ammunitions you can have. So the review said that we need a national registry, that it should be digitized, because apparently it's still pen and paper in Queensland. Yeah, I was I didn't realize anything in government ran on pen. Yeah, that's what they said. So, all right, maybe I could agree with them there, just for the sake of efficiency and the poor bureaucrats involved here. Get on a computer, for God's sake. Who the hell works with pen and paper still? But the main point that they're making here, and that also the Australian is pushing, is that, and this kind of goes into the next story as well here, is that they want the harmonization of gun laws. They're saying that the states and the territories are failing to harmonize gun laws. What does that mean? It means it's a race to the bottom.
Federalize.
It means whichever state or territory has the harshest gun laws, those should be the laws adopted by every other state and territory. And yet, well, you said, federalize. You have to wonder, what is the point of having state governments if they're just going to harmonize all their laws? We shouldn't even fucking bother with the states then, if that's what you're going to do. The point is they're independent entities that pass their own laws.
What a whole bunch of smoking emojis.
So the Australian was talking about, for example, high-powered 50 caliber sniper rifles that are legal in
What?
Australia. Well,
What?
look, some states have banned them.
No, like, why do you care about them?
Why? Well, look, why the Australian was running all this stuff, I don't really know.
It's 50 BMG, like fucking Jesus Christ. The dude pulls the trigger. Like, he's paying like fucking like $15 a pop. Let him do his execution.
I'm a spurg on many things, but not guns. So I really don't have a clue what that is.
Well, I'm a material and there's an anti-material around, so like yeah, I'm a speg on that.
Yeah, so look, I mentioned WAs, like we recently passed a new raft of gun laws. One of them was actually specifically to ban 50 caliber rifles. So the Australian is saying, okay, well, why hasn't Queensland done it? Yeah, so
have you shot an emu with anything less than like something like actually 7.62, that's technically 50 caliber, by the way. By your own definition, by your own like writing of the law about the diameter of the bullet. Guess what that did to an emu?
what, have you done that? Have you shot an emu? I'll finish your point.
I'll neither confirm nor deny, but also nothing.
Right. Okay. Well, look, here's how they describe it, okay? Sounding really scary. The sniper or assault-style BMG rifles can shoot accurately for hundreds of meters and were originally designed to target tanks and aircraft in World War One. Scary.
What the fuck? No. No, not at all. And I'm going to say no with the R because like that is absolutely not the fucking case.
Okay, now the last story we've got on guns is gel blasters. Now, these are like replica guns, and as the name suggests, they don't fire bullets. They fire like little balls of gel. So it's kind of similar to, when people go paintballing, that kind of thing.
It's like airsoft, but like gayer.
Yeah, so look, okay, well, here's the Australian's description. They cost between $20 and $2,000. They are lifelike replicas of sniper rifles, Glock pistols, submachine guns, double-barrel shotguns, and other military weapons.
Cool.
They shoot small balls filled with gel and can be used in skirmish or paintball-style games. So, yeah, I think that's what they're mainly used for.
And I want later teens to be training with them.
Say that again?
I want later teens to be training with them.
Well, I've heard that paintballing is actually in a way is sort of like military training. I've never done it. I certainly don't care if you go out and do it. So, yeah, this is overreach here because gun control advocates are urging other jurisdictions, again, Queensland is singled out here, to either ban them or make them only legal for people who have a gun license.
Well, there are a bunch of smoking emojis at that point. They
have a gun license. What, to own a gun that shoots a small ball of gel? What the fuck? It's a toy.
It's a joke. It's a joke. But also at that point, train your youth to actually know and how to use a gun and also how to fight with a gun.
All right. So let's move on to crime. Now, remember we're staying in Queensland, the what's been referred to as the fatally flawed DNA testing. So we've heard a fair bit about that. They've got a faulty DNA testing program that's used to track down criminals. Apparently, it has been so bad. So this is the final report from Annabelle Bennett, who of course was commissioned by the Queensland state government to do a review into this. She described it as fatally flawed, and that up to 100,000 crime scene samples since the year 2007 could have to be retested. So in other words, all of those samples are dodgy. Wow. So those numbers are even bigger than what you'd expect. Now, that means two things. One, that there would be a hell of a lot of criminals who just got away with everything. But conversely, it could have actually got innocent people.
Criminals who got put in for something.
Yes. Yeah. Part of this she's blaming on was the automated system. So introducing robots to extract DNA. This was a rushed attempt to clear testing backlogs. It had never been validated, recorded less DNA than other methods, and may have compromised criminal trials and prevented successful prosecutions.
What?
Yeah.
Robot.
I remember going through this at the time. Basically, there were complaints by bureaucrats that things weren't moving quickly enough when it came to reaching conclusions on DNA samples. So, yeah, they introduced a form of automation.
A robot.
To rush it.
A robot into a very fucking sensitive and very fucking legally fucking like precise industry. Yeah, okay, that's a fucking good idea. Let's see how that goes. Oh wait, we got the results terribly. Sorry.
Okay. So there's a current plan in the Northern Territory to station more of the territory's police in Alice Springs. The reason being is because the hot weather is getting worse. The heat brings out the wild in... Now, the police, though, Natasha Files announced that there's going to be 50 additional officers that are going to be rostered onto Operation Dreener. So this is specifically for the summer to prevent a repeat of, the scenes that we saw about a year ago. Now, the police union and other coppers are not happy about this, though, because Northern Territory Police is already stretched really, really badly. And taking 50 coppers to Alice Springs obviously takes 50 coppers away from other areas. So you're going to get other areas where you'll have just as bad Aboriginal crime occurring and not enough cops. So dare I say, this is just because the government was getting so much media flack over what was going on in Alice Springs and all the TikTok videos that were coming out of there. So, yeah, but that's what happens when you demonize your police force. And none of them want to work there anymore. And now you're left in a situation where you've got a shortage and you're hiring private security to do patrols. Okay. Geez, so much out of Queensland today. So I guess because maybe there's an election coming up. So they've actually reformed their laws regarding dogs. Now, this is about dogs that attack people. So they could, if you're an owner of one of these dogs, you could face up to 3 years in jail or $108,000 in fines. So these are proposed changes, by the way. They haven't passed yet. But they've been under review since 2021. You do have, you already have restrictions on certain breeds. I'm not sure if in Queensland, but I know that pit bull terriers they're now illegal in New South Wales. What they did was they made it illegal to breed anymore or buy anymore and then the ones who were left at that point in time, would just eventually die out. So we're probably at the point now where there is not any legal pit bull terriers in New South Wales. So that's what is also being proposed here. They want to breed out the pit bull terrier, and there's talks of other, more vicious breeds of dogs. And isn't it interesting that race realism absolutely applies to the canine world, even when it comes to the passing of laws? But no, it doesn't, unfortunately, apply to the human kingdom, does it? Okay. Just 2 quick stories on fraud being perpetrated on Aboriginal communities.
Oh, God.
So there's this guy who apparently ripped off a remote Aboriginal community to the tune of $2.7 million. His name was Craig Robert Dale, and he had been due to face a 2-week trial in the district court in WA. But then he ended up pleading guilty to 14 charges relating to the Warrum community in the Kimberley. Okay, so what did this guy do? Back in 2013 and 2014, he was offering to build staff housing for the community and reconstruct a burnt building. Now,
why was it burnt? Also, like
staff housing. Building. I got to point this out though. Staff housing is almost never for Aboriginal people. It's for white people who are working there, the people who are doing the real work.
Yeah.
So he proposed to do that. The burnt building, though, I bet that was originally with Aborigines in it. How else did it burn down? And so he demanded an upfront payment to over $2.7 million into his personal bank account. He then did none of the work promised, and he spent the money all on himself, mainly for gambling. All right, well, look.
He's an Aboriginal.
I don't know if he is an Aboriginal.
No, like he is like a.
Oh, you mean the way spiritually. Right. Well, what happened there? You're making out with your microphone or something?
No, I'm just like I'm giving the Aboriginal treatment.
Right. Now, look, I don't deny this happened. People do shit like this a lot of the time, but look, it shows how much money these Aboriginal communities or corporations, or whatever they're called, actually have. The fact that you've got $2.7 million to go out and splurge on housing. Obviously, some people are going to take advantage of that. And when you have people who aren't really used to handling large amounts of money, they make dumb decisions like this. Now, another example of this is not in the prep, but I just saw it on 7:30. I was reminded of it. Telstra are still under fire for mobile phone plans given to Aborigines in Aboriginal communities. So we covered this about a year ago.
Years.
Well, wow. I remember we covered this at the time, and we actually read out Telstra ended up having to pay. It was massive. It was like $50 million in fines and compensation.
For every single boom who couldn't fucking read.
Right. Well, yeah. So effectively, what you had was, I mean, look. Unfortunately, when it comes to mobile phone and other contracts, sometimes poor people get ripped off because they don't read the fine print or read any of it, basically, and they don't really know what they're getting themselves into. That's essentially what happened here. You had low agency, low IQ people who got involved.
Read the fucking fine print. For the love of God, read it. Just if it takes 15 more minutes, just fucking read it.
But what is funny here though is that the basic thrust that came from the court. I remember we did live reacts to the court's ruling because it said like reasons why Aboriginal people basically should be treated differently when it comes to negotiating contract sales with them. No. That wasn't in there. I mean, obviously that's the number one reason why.
Yeah.
I would perhaps sympathize with the court if they said that. No, one of the reasons given was that it is not in Aboriginal people's nature or culture to be confrontational. Do you remember that? I fucking lost it when I read that one out.
God, I was like, oh, they won't fucking object to a contract because like they don't like confrontation and like you know, like being like being the guy who says nay, like that's just a part of their culture. Yeah, I do remember that.
Go to Wellington Street and talk to some of the full bloods there, and you can test that theory.
Hey, go to any fucking Australian fucking train station and tell the guy that no, I won't give you $5 for the bus.
So basically the 7:30 said, I still always call it the 7:30 report because that's what it used to be called. They said that it's still going on, and that some of the compensation money that was put up by Telstra never reached certain individuals who were affected by it. Like there was some unemployed Aboriginal woman who was paying $130 a month contract. You know, like obviously that was out of her means. I've never spent anywhere near that much on a mobile phone plan.
What?
The last one I got, like to pay off the phone that I use now,
I spent money on like a fucking household plan.
Yeah, I heard that and I was like, Jesus, like what kind of fucking phone did they give her? How much like data did that have? And what the hell would she need that for? So yeah, you know what? I would actually say that, yeah, sometimes Aboriginal people should be given special privileges in terms of they given greater consumer protection. But
they should be given
need them to acknowledge why. They should acknowledge why they should be given those protections. And it's because they're stupid. Why can't we just admit that?
Let's do it. Let's do it now. But also, it's like just give you the same fucking like you know, white woman they allow to fucking like handle Down syndrome children. Maybe like functionally, like
you know, they're given special protections.
Yeah, we've actually seen it in fucking court.
Yeah, well, where you've had like mentally disabled people who call those fucking like chat lines with sex work, you know, like call me now and this fucking and it's like $10 an hour. Some people have won those cases, and yeah, I think that's fair enough. You shouldn't take advantage of, you know, mentally disabled people in that way. And Aboriginal people as a race, as a collective, are disabled.
2 standard deviations, but below actually clinically disabled. But yeah.
Right. Okay.
Prove me wrong. Let's rock and roll.
Oh, sorry, I just my prep. So I just moved it. Right. Yes, next story. I have a white pill for us. I can't believe it, but we do.
Oh, you do?
Yep. So last week we covered the story of a senior female executive named Rochelle Hicks. She is, senior executive for Transport for New South Wales, which is I believe it's a government body that's involved in infrastructure building in New South Wales. And she was working on the $2.2 billion Coffs Harbour bypass project. Another person employed here was a man named Ian Brown. Now, Ian Brown was hired as an Indigenous Cultural Affairs officer. All right. So, in other words, he's hired there to tell you what areas are spiritually and culturally significant, how much would need to be done to disturb that significance, and also how much money you should maybe give the local tribe if you do want to cause a bit of a cultural disturbance. So he issued a death threat against her. He said, if I see Rochelle, I will kill her. He also referred to her as a white cunt on another occasion. Now, Transport for New South Wales openly said that they were not going to fire him because of the fact that he was Aboriginal, and they thought it would bring bad publicity. Well, ever since the Australian newspaper published that story, he's been sacked. Can you believe it? Chris Minns actually did something about this and sacked him. I can't.
Chris Minns actually did something? Wow.
He actually did something good. Amazing. And so, yeah, I guess I'd also just say props to the Australian for actually reporting that story. We got this prick sacked. Okay. Oh, are you being interrupted? Not really. You wouldn't be where you live, Nolsey. But we've got what is the flagship part of the MetroNet infrastructure plan here in WA. This was Mark McGowan's signature policy going into not the last election, but the one before. And that basically just meant was massively improving train lines in Perth. So this now, the major part of it, this is the Armidale train line. Just don't go to the end of that line, and you'll be okay.
I'm a nigger train line.
So it is a multi-billion-dollar upgrade and extensions of the 130-year-old line. Now, while this goes on, it's been estimated that it is going to take up to 18 months. And that means you've got 10,000 commuters who are going to be affected.
It means it's going to take about 5 years.
Yeah, so I was going to say, this is a Labor infrastructure project. So, I don't know what the exact arithmetic is here, but you can multiply that 18 months by a lot. And yeah. So when they say 10,000 people affected, that means they can't take the line. They got to find alternative means. So they are announcing that there's going to be increased buses. They're going to be doing more rounds. So, there'll be other ways you can do it. But yeah, the Transport Minister, Rita Sefoti, said, "We expect some hiccups over the initial few days." I bet. New ways, new processes, in particular, a whole new bus service that's been created, that's like what I said before, will cause some challenges, but across the network. So yeah. Whenever we've had major infrastructure projects here, like the Mandurah line, you might remember that, Nolsey. You would have been pretty young, but I remember driving on the freeway
line
when the Mandurah line was being constructed. Oh my god, man, it was a nightmare. It's a fucking nightmare. And they were giving people
have no
fines.
Freeway.
Yeah,
congratulations.
The freeway turned into a game of Daytona. There were just bollards everywhere, linking into other lanes and making you duck and weave the whole way. And you go from an 80 zone to a 60 zone, and they would change them. So sometimes people were getting
60 zone.
People were getting fined for doing 80 kilometers in what they thought was an 80 zone, but it was actually a 60 zone. Or they had just put the incorrect signage up or something like that. So, yeah.
Well,
this is going to be probably just as bad, albeit it's not going to affect the freeway this time.
It's going to be worse, but not that way. In a new way. In a new, more creative way.
Yeah, and I mean, this is major because they're actually elevating some of these stations. They're putting them up on stilts. So it's a major, major project. Okay, now our Premier has also said, our Treasurer has said that WA is being punished by the federal government. Now, that's pretty strong language. Rita Sefoti is also the Treasurer and our Deputy Premier. I forgot about that when Roger Cook took over. So she's obviously very senior, perhaps in line for the premiership. But anyway, most state and territory leaders are very critical of the Commonwealth government's decision to wipe $30 billion from 50 projects. And this is said to be, just for the sake of fiscal frugality, but also apparently it's going to put downward pressure on inflation as well. Now, most of these projects were announced previous to the Albanese government, so they were mainly Liberal Party coalition projects. Nonetheless, a lot of them were negotiated with Labor states and territories, though. So they're not happy about it. Now, that said, all of the funding that they had committed to MetroNet, which, as I said, the major part of that's being done now, all of that is going to remain. But what was it? Oh, yeah. So, for example, there's going to be a bypass highway around Pinjarra. They're taking funding away from that, for example. So, yeah.
Good. Pinjarra should be a fucking problem for everyone.
I don't mind Pinjarra. I've not been there in a long time, though. Okay. All right, we can move on to climate and energy. So, there was a school strike yesterday. You might not have heard of it. They're not as popular now, and I think the Palestine school strikes are kind of stealing their thunder a little bit.
That's terrible.
Now, Chris Bowen did a speech the other day. This was, according to the ABC, stacked. It was at a green energy conference, and it was stacked with oil and gas executives, as you would expect, wouldn't you? And he referred to taking action on climate change as a moral imperative. He said that Australia has an obligation to the rest of the world and to future generations to embrace a greener future. But he told the summit that the obligation may look different in Australia.
So blue or like surface radiation. A blue future.
Of course, reducing our domestic emissions is very important, but we can have an even bigger impact by helping the rest of the world decarbonize. And our abundant renewable energy resources and our vital inputs to the clean energy supply can help us do just that. So you said that gas would play a role in maintaining reliable domestic...
It always does.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. But then, of course, there's still extra.
Oh god, my wind power and my solar power. Also, like to make sure the grid doesn't fucking collapse, I need a fucking gas generator right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hate it.
So. All right, so the people at this bloody protest, here's some of the stuff that they were calling for. So here are the three key demands: net zero by 2030 with no new coal, oil, or gas projects. Oh my god!
All right, die.
Yeah, in other words. But by the way, those are the policies of the Greens. Okay, the Greens are the fucking just as kooky. Transition to 100% renewable energy generation by 2030. Funding for a transition and job creation for workers employed in the fossil fuel industry and their communities. Oh, they actually included that one, did they?
Ooh.
So at least they're thinking of the workers who would be put out of a job. All right. So look,
that's rare. That's actually rare. Like they consider the fucking blue collar guys. Well, damn. Those guys can survive the wood chipper. The rest of them straight into it.
All right. So Australia's top employer groups have said that electric vehicles and their increased use in Australia are going to make no meaningful contribution to the 2030 emissions targets. So, yeah, this was the Australian Chamber of Commerce. So the executive said many consumers prefer electric vehicles, but the high costs and lack of supporting infrastructure are influencing their decisions and putting the government's targets out of reach. Consumers are holding back purchasing decisions until they know they will have access. So they also said, the Chamber of Commerce said that that means that you might see a dent in 2035 targets, but not in 2030. So electric vehicles are effectively going to make no difference.
Yeah. Actually, they're going to be a phase. Dude, so much lithium. Why? You know how much lithium takes to actually extract from the ground, refine it, make it into a battery, and etc. You know how much aluminium takes to extract from the ground, make it into a fucking engine casing, and put it in your fucking like Honda Civic, I'd give you a fucking scale. Far less.
All right. I'm triggered when I see Teslas.
Yeah.
And I actually, I went away the other weekend and I actually saw some out on the country roads. That was the first time I'd seen them there. They're not, obviously not doing four-wheel driving and that kind of thing, but
Oh, God, I couldn't see them out there. I would have killed them. And their occupants. Oh, God. Oh. Sorry, I'm just joking, but oh, God. Anyway.
Okay, so moving on to the lawfare that is employed by these conservation groups. You've got this one, what are they called? Sorry, I don't have the name handy, but they are conducting their own investigation into what they say is illegal tree clearing, and they've been writing to farmers directly to warn them of breaches that they have made. In other words, these are... Oh, sorry, this is the Australian Conservation Foundation. And they have basically been bullying and harassing farmers who are clearing trees on their own land, telling them that they're violating environmental laws. So this naturally, like the Farmers Federation has rightly called this bullying and intimidation. And the Conservation Foundation is carrying out its own crowdsourced investigations since March that is using satellite imagery to fill a supposed gap in monitoring by authorities. So they're spying on them as well.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Do you expect anything less?
Yep. So, look, they are threatening further action. They put out public statements, again, warning these farmers to stop doing it. And they said that they're going to take them to court if they don't stop.
Yeah. Why wouldn't they? Tell me, why wouldn't they?
All right. So we're going to education now. So just quickly, a new report says that Australian private schools are overfunded by $800 million, whereas public schools have a shortfall of $4.5 billion. Now, there's obviously more public schools than there are private schools, so that will account for some of the discrepancy there. But yeah, they're saying that gap between the overfunding and the underfunding, private versus public, is widening in Australia. Yeah, you know why? Because we're importing more stupid people. That's why. And you've got parents who, whether they know it or not, are opting for a private school to get away from dumb brown people.
We're opting for like a the parents guy, which is didn't do his private school of don't get fucked in the ass, Mr. Go Kick.
All right, so we have a new charter on sexual harm because that has just been agreed to by Australian universities. All right, so this is, they said, it's a document that has pretty close resemblance to commitments that were already made by universities back in 2017. But this time, I don't know, it's just kind of like they've made it a charter. They've made it more visible. They're making people know about it. And it's supposed to be regarding the priorities for tackling sexual harassment and assault on university campuses, which, as we said before, those numbers are extremely inflated due to the fact that they're just emails that go out saying, would you like to participate in this? And so it's only volunteers who take part. So yeah, that's not stopping the ABC from basically saying that the data doesn't go far enough.
No, it doesn't.
Oh, so the other announcement here, this is from the federal government. They're setting up a national student ombudsman So this will be from semester 1 next year. And that means that university students who are harmed on campus can make a complaint to that ombudsman. Now, this doesn't just apply to, say, sexual assault or violence or whatever. You can also complain if you think your course is being run badly. So, yeah, you could already do that before, though. I mean, universities always do that, always ask you for feedback on, what you think of your lecturer and all that kind of thing.
Or some kind of dumb shit. Like, Ray, you're fucking like a teaching professional. Like, yeah.
Right. So, yeah, this was announced by Jason Clare the other day. And he said he's now in talks with state and territory ministers to negotiate changes to university governance to ensure that complaints of sexual violence are properly investigated. Okay, so onto the economy. Unemployment has gone from 3.6% to 3.7%. It's only marginal. Only a few, we do have more jobs being created, but for some reason we're getting that small increase. I think that's more people dropping out of the workforce, people giving up. Because remember, you're not included in the figures if you just give up and say, all right, I'm no longer looking for a job. It only concerns people looking for jobs. Now, Jim Chalmers is saying that we've got a problem with competition in this country. So he's saying that companies are becoming too big and that they are buying out smaller companies too often. And he's flagged reforming corporate merger laws. So the ACCC, the relevant regulator here, has its own proposition that firms above a certain size would have to gain a formal approval from the watchdog before they can pursue any deals, along with a special call-in power to capture smaller mergers that raise specific competition concerns. Why not we just have high tariffs on foreign exports and companies? Then you can revitalize local Australian
exports. That ruin exports. Just immediately that ruin exports. Oh God, if we actually did that, God, our internal fucking industry would grow to the size of a billiard ball. Anyway.
So, yeah, I mean, Jim Chalmers could well be correct there in saying that we have this issue with it, but simply just kind of controlling takeover deals, it's just secondary solution that just ultimately won't go anywhere. All right, so quickly onto housing. Another story from Queensland. The first homeowners grant has been doubled to $30,000 for new homes, new built homes, that is. You have to actually build the house. And that's going to last until mid-2025. So the grant only applies to buying or building a new home valued under $750,000, and it just came into effect. Now, the grant can also be used if you're going to build a granny flat or modular home. So you see that they're also trying to increase urban density, pack everyone in further. So while I usually don't have any issue with these grants, in fact, I think they're pretty helpful. I do have an issue with that. We shouldn't be encouraging more granny flats and modular homes.
That's true. Yeah.
Okay, so Tony Burke is one step closer to getting through his IR reforms, and that is because he's struck a deal with employers representing some of Australia's biggest resource and energy companies. So he has agreed to exempt service contractors from the new workplace laws, and that means that they have won the support from Australian Resources and Energy Employer Association, whose members include Fortescue, Woodside, ExxonMobil, and Chevron.
Oh,
So some big fucking companies there.
yeah.
Now there are still other companies such as BHP and Qantas who remain opposed to the bill. So, but it looks like they've got the biggest
some
players on
companies
side
are
now.
owned by the fucking. Some companies are owned by the fucking companies you just mentioned. If not directly, then tangentially.
Oh yeah, that's true. But yeah, look, this does mean that they have watered the bill down by a significant extent. Okay, they're exempting service contractors. That's obviously going to encompass a lot of people, a lot of independent entrepreneurs. You know, and if these big companies suddenly like the idea, well, you know, I'm going to crook an eyebrow at that. All right. So in the seat of Mulgrave, this was Daniel Andrews' seat, who of course has retired from politics. This, of course, safe Labor seat. The Labor candidate Eden Foster has won, as you would expect. However, she suffered a 10% swing against her. So even in safe Labor territory, not everyone was happy with Chairman Dan. Okay, so Northern Territory, the Labor Party. I'm just going to do these stories will be quick. We're nearly at the end of the show. Natasha Files, the Chief Minister, has divested, in other words, gotten rid of 169 shares that she owned in Woodside. She actually basically acquired these shares by accident. What happened was there was like a mini merger between a part of Woodside and what was the other company? BHP. And so that resulted in her BHP shares suddenly becoming Woodside shares. Or it might have been the other way around. I can't remember. But basically that's what had happened. And she had declared the shares originally, but then when they became the shares of the other company, they're saying that she should have then declared that difference. And that caused a bit of a controversy. I got to actually kind of take her side here. I thought that was a really pissy thing. I mean, the nature of the shares really didn't change. And she had originally declared them. So, but nonetheless, she got rid of them to
high stakes mining shares.
Okay, so New South Wales Liberal Party. So they've just had a review, which was essentially a post-mortem into the election that they lost. So they wanted to come up with reasons why they lost. So the number one thing was actually just simply an it's time factor. You know, they'd done 3 terms, 12 years in power. People just want something new. But they said that there was tensions between the offices of Premier and Treasurer. So Matt Keane, remember, the moderate, who was always like mocking and going after the hard right of his own party. He also said that the natural home of the Teals should be the Liberal Party.
Yes, that faggot too. I'm sorry, like a smoky emoji.
So they did bring up the Nazi costume incident. So that was Dominic Perrottet wearing a Nazi uniform at his 21st birthday. I don't know why they brought that up. They described it as an internal distraction. So, okay, maybe it was a distraction, but I honestly don't think they really would have cost him votes. I really don't.
Hitler doesn't cost anyone votes.
Yeah. They also pointed the finger at the Federal Party and, you know, Scott Morrison and Alex Hawke meddling in the state affairs of the New South Wales Liberal Party. That I do think that's genuine. There were definitely issues there. Okay. So the Health Services Union Secretary, Gerard Haynes, remember the HSU, they're a pretty powerful union, but mainly powerful in terms of how they influence the Labor Party. They're quite bad at representing their members. So anyway, they have backed Jim Chalmers as a future Labor leader. So this, I believe, is like the first major union to do so. Jim Chalmers, of course, has enjoyed an increased profile since he became treasurer. And the reason they gave here, well, I'll just read what Jared Hayes said. He said, he seems to be to be quietly spoken. He seems to be hardworking, not one of these personality type people. From what I pick up, what you see is what you get. And I think in a leader, that is far more important than being populist. All right, when you said that bit, quietly spoken, yeah, I'd agree with that. But I always thought of that as a weakness of Jim Chalmers, because he does not have a very authoritative way of speaking. He almost has a childlike way. He speaks in this sort of soft, childlike voice. And I don't think that gives off the aura of strength that people
I can't even speak in a child voice. That is my little lollipop I would like to lick. Oh. I'm Jim Chalmers. I'm gay.
Look, apparently this, these are, anonymous Labor figures talking to the Australian. That ruffles some feathers among supporters of other would-be leaders. So they've included, people from the New South Wales right that include Tony Burke, Ed Husic, and Chris Bowen. Okay, Tony Burke doesn't have a chance. He has the personality of a wet towel. Chris Bowen fucked things up when he had the franking credits debacle and told people, if you don't like us, don't vote for us. He also has become increasingly embittered since he became climate change minister, because he's just always out there shouting, and he just always looks like he's eternally irritated. And Ed Husic is a Muslim. I don't know if that's really going to go that well. Even for people who say they're not Islamophobic or whatever, I'd still say they'd have a bit of reservation about voting for a Muslim. So, to health. So, Labor have announced an overhaul to our Medicare system. One of the big pitfalls that have been identified is a lack of doctors in regional areas, and what we can do to keep those doctors there. Okay, well, I'll tell you what you can do. You can increase the infrastructure there. You can basically make things like public transport and utilities more abundant in the regions, and then people have more incentive to live there long term. But also stop sending foreign doctors there all the time, because those foreign doctors are simply looking for that visa to expire and their new one to begin, so they can move into a city area. And a lot of the time they gain exemptions as well. Okay, so you need to actually have people of the community who want to live in those areas. And just throwing more money at Medicare isn't going to make that happen. So cancer patients will have significantly greater access to specialist nurses. So this is a $166 million package announced by Albanese. When we look at mental health, Australia is said to be suffering an acute mental health crisis, and they are being failed by the health system. So this was a new report that came out from the AMA, the Australian Medical Association, and it said that the average length of stay in emergency departments for those presenting with mental health-related conditions, that's often people threatening to kill themselves, by the way, and serious about it, is actually at its highest ever. And we are taking too long, up to 30 hours sometimes, to actually attend to them. So, yeah. But again, why is that happening? Okay, fine. Focus on the response and the resources that you need to help those people, of course. But why is this actually happening? Why is it always the secondary solutions?
Why are we done with band-aids rather than the actual fucking solution? Well, it's because we're a whole bunch of fucking gay cunts in a gay society, and I guess we're all here right now, aren't we?
Yep. So we've also got some more autistic stats on disability in this country, and funnily enough, it's to do with autism itself. So when it comes to children, those who are under 18 on the NDIS, 12% of all boys age 5 to 7 and 5% of girls in the same age group are now on the NDIS. How about that? That is a fucking huge number. The number of NDIS recipients is over 631,000 now. And the scheme is going to cost an extra $10 billion after it totaled $35 billion last year. So it's further out of control than what you think. All right, and last story. I guess sort of a white pill here. And look, I might make this the thumbnail of today's episode. I'll review it again just to make sure it's not too lewd or whatever. But this concerned a Pride event. I think it's either this weekend or it's already been. It's part of Wynnum Fringe, which is in Brisbane's Bayside. So this was a... What?
Bin. As in has been.
Oh, so it has been on.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right. So you see, when I collect these stories out all throughout the week, and I often just lose track of when exactly they've been on. But anyway, part of this is at their Fringe Festival. I think most of us have those in our states. They were distributing flyers, a fake flyer of the event. This was a group that was opposed to this particular event of Bay Pride that would take part in the Wynnum Fringe Festival. And basically the reason why is because they said it's appropriate for children to be there. They said it was a family-friendly event.
What?
As they always do. Now, I'm just going to quickly... You might have seen it, Nolsey. I posted it the other day. I'm just going to really quickly bring it up here. So the original flyer just said, like, Wynnum Fringe presents Bay Pride Sunday. Oh, no, it's this weekend. It's this Sunday. It's 26th of November.
Rally, man. Rally.
And then it just had a picture of 3 drag queens is what it looks like. Okay, so this rival group, I'm not actually sure who it's from because there was a number of groups who were not happy about this and tried to have them removed from the bill. They put out their own flyer and they put it in people's letterboxes where they had the same kind of, the same thing where it said Bay Pride Wynnum Fringe presents. But then on the outside, the top title says, please bring your children. It says pet the animals, and it's got a little girl holding a chain attached to those those animal gimp suits that gays wear. It's got fancy dress where it's got a young boy, with a ball gag in his mouth. Kissing classes where it's got an image from a Pride event with a gay man who's kissing a young boy on the lips. And then meet and greet where you've got 2 more of these people in the animal.
So from Kotai, you can actually get a wood chipper.
Right. So it says, this all-day event is fully endorsed by Joan Peace, who's the MP. She's the member in question who doesn't have a problem with this. And then it goes on to name 3 other companies who I assume are sponsoring, funding
it's agitprop. Oh, that's agitprop. But
also,
and
I think it's very effective.
Yep, good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for your agitprop.
Yeah, so look, even though I find, especially this one of the gay man kissing the young boy, I mean, that's repulsive, but, sometimes you need to be repulsive.
It fucking happens.
Yeah,
it
get
fucking happens.
Oh, yeah, no, here's the other very important thing. Now, of course, this flyer is fake. However, those photos are from Pride marches. These are real photos. They're not stage managed. These are actual photos from Pride March events where children have been exploited.
It's not neg-prop, it's agitprop. It's not negative propaganda made. It's agitation propaganda.
Yes.
Which is shown to you. We are showing you what they do. We're not negating it and showing you some image that we fabricated for them. No. We are agitating you on their own fucking image.
Right. So, unfortunately, the event is still going ahead, but the organizers of this event are actually saying they're considering legal action against the group responsible for producing that flyer. I say no way. This was just their form of political advertising. They should absolutely be allowed to do it. Okay, guys, thank you for listening. Another kind of marathon long episode for you. The stories just keep piling up, I guess. But yeah, thank you for listening. Check us out at theracer.biz, and we'll see you next week for the big 200th episode.